Well, welcome back, True Gardeners. We are in Cocoa Beach, Florida today on a project that we finished a few weeks ago, and I wanted to bring you along. It is very young, it is very new, but I think it's going to appeal to a lot of you guys because there's some key things that we did that I just think really enhance the space. We'll walk through them in a minute, but the first one is going to be this awesome walkway path that kind of leads from one area of the garden to another, kind of creating just some interest. You know, it takes you from the pool area, walks you up into this section, and then my clients are going to put a beautiful pergola with a swing or a seating section into that spot over there in the shade, and I think it's just adds a little bit of whimsy to the garden. The second one is they have a very long fence line here. Like a lot of us Floridians, they've got a lot of roof lines and houses on the opposite side of that fence line, so they needed something that was going to give them pretty instant privacy, and that doesn't sound as challenging unless you're kind of here and you see it and you can see how high their house sits on their property, and then it slopes down here. So it was a bit of a challenge to make that happen, but I think that you're really going to like the combination of material that we used, something that you can replicate into your own space. So, and then the next thing is some key things that you can do to change up a garden. So you can only have so many plants or so many trees, but having some of that detail, maybe some interesting edging or the perfect way to place some boulders to add some different elements in the garden. To me, that just kind of gives you a finishing touch to the space. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So join me, walk with me. But before we get started, you guys be sure to like and subscribe. We put these videos out every single weekend, and you know, this is what we love to do. So if you love watching them, then please let us know by clicking that little notification bell and subscribing, and we will see you every single weekend. So stick around because I really do think that at the end of the video, you're going to really like those final tips. So let's jump right in. All right, you guys, so the very first thing I wanted to mention that I loved so much about this particular property is obviously this yard has a little bit more vastness than a lot of the yards that I get to work in. And that is a pro and it's a con. You know, it can be fantastic to be able to layer these things in and really kind of create a tropical jungle if that's what my clients are looking for, but it can be very, very overwhelming when you have a little bit of room or you have that odd corner in your yard, kind of like my client had here. So they've got this little section right here that was off to the right side of their property. They've got their main entertaining area, their pool right outside their back door, but then there's this corner, this side over here that is very shaded between the palm trees and the magnolia tree. It's a pretty heavily shaded spot. So what to do in that spot? Now, I am a big fan of creating pathways, but not so much creating pathways to nowhere. So if you're gonna have a area that maybe you just can't landscape in, or maybe it's just like this and there's super sun everywhere you look, but here, it looks like 7 or 8 degrees cooler where I'm sitting right here. So that's why this video started here. It's steamy hot out in the rest of the yard. But this is a great spot. So I asked my clients, do you think that you might use a seating section, a fire pit, you know, whatever that might draw you into another section of the yard? Could be a water feature, it could be anything along those lines. And they said, absolutely. We love the idea of just having a little area for maybe putting a swing and a pergola over in this area so the grandkids can come out here and sit and they could relax in this section. So that's exactly what we did. We created an opening. We have a 3 to 4 foot walkway that meanders right from their pool area gate all the way through the middle of the yard and then up into a walkway section. And then they had an old pathway, kind of just remaining from a previous build. We went from that pathway and added a secondary walkway that was a nice quick walk from the driveway area over here and just came right off of this and created a second pathway. It just added some interest. When you're sitting up there by the pool area, you can see these walkways cross and it just looks so interesting to like, hey, what's going on over there? And that's exactly what it did. It just added a little bit of interest. And you know, I think it added a different room to this garden. Now we can let all of this foliage grow up around us and we're nestled all in the foliage, and it's going to be an absolutely stunning place to, whether they do tables and chairs out here or a pergola with a couple big swings or whatever that might be. It's its own space. So if you have the room, and even if you don't, you can squeeze a little bit in there, do a pathway leading to a little bench or a little water feature, a little seating section. There's something so charming about that, and you don't need much. Now, on average, just to let you guys know, for a yard of rock, you can get about 100 square foot out of that. So when you're measuring your space, kind of consider that. Our pathway is 3 to 4 foot wide, and then it opens up to about 12 foot wide where the seating section is. And we have a couple pathways leading into it. However, definitely, if you're going to create and put the investment into creating a pathway or a seating section, finish it off with a nice edging. I love the Buda edging. I think it's just a long-term fix. It looks fabulous and clean and pulls out. If you get close to it, Bryce, you can see the grays and tans that it pulls out of the stone. I think it blends so beautifully, and it works really well with the house colors and the patio colors with its tan and neutral coloring. You want to make sure that you've protected and kept that stone nice and tight with an edging product that will hold that in place. So when you're thinking about your space, consider the amount of square footage that you're going to need for that granite or stone work that you're going to do, and then pick the right edging that's really going to hold that long term. Make sure it's fastened and tightly in, and then you've got a beautiful, beautiful long-term walkway, little patio seating section that it opens up to. All right, you guys, so this was the long fence that I was talking about. This property is a fantastic property to work in, as I mentioned, but this can be a bit intimidating. You know, this big, long expanse, especially at the slope that it's at. I run across this problem with a lot of my clients where they have a fence line and they're like, okay, so we have the intermediate privacy of what a 6-foot fence line can do, but I don't like the look of the fence and what happens above that 6 foot. Why we can still see house lines, we can still see windows and, you know, so on. We're looking into each other's backyards. This is a combination that's going to give my client pretty immediate coverage with the layers, but the real beauty comes in about a year to 18 months when things really start to pick up and grow up and fill in. So we're going to go over this plant combination that I have behind me in hopes that, gosh, if this is a look that you like, then you can replicate this to show you guys what that looks like, and then just kind of get a visual of what that space would look like if you were actually placing plants and trees into those locations to create that same kind of buffering that you might want to create for your neighbors. So in this particular spot, this is where it loops out a bit, and you can see that I chose some larger palm trees to go up and over the fence line, so that way the house is directly behind. It kind of gives us a break. It doesn't create a wall in any kind of sense of the word, but it definitely gives us a break and instantaneous thickness up there. So they're staggered in kind of a triangle formation. The center is pulled out, the two on each side are pulled in a little bit, and then we've got some intermediate trees that are going to follow up with that look. We've got 5 pygmy date palms doing the same thing as what those foxtail palms are doing. We have 2 pulled forward on each end. We've got 2 up here pulled forward, 1 pushed back. So we have a staggering effect. And what'll happen is those pygmy date palms start to grow in. Right now they're about 6.5 foot, but in time they're going to be 10 to 12 foot. And that 10 to 12 foot fully connected, we're gonna have almost a wall of fronds that are not gonna outgrow that height. So that's what I love about pygmy date palms. They give you nice bit of coverage, nice bit of denseness with very little effort, with very little care, trimming once to twice a year, and then really creating that wall that's not going to outgrow that space. So they're going to do a great job. And they also leave room at the bottom as those trunks can become more exposed. Now you've got room to really lush out with some colorful plants down below. So you'll have a nice tiering effect. That's why they're in the backdrop. Now, could I have just put in a row of pygmy date palms? Absolutely. And you can do that too. They're going to do the job. They're going to become a great backing, and if you don't have a lot of room to stagger them, put a row of them in there. You can always layer with plant material in front of them to make it more interesting, but we did have the room here, so we brought them in and out, so that way they're going to just kind of create more of an organic look as they grow in together. Then we have a centerpiece tree like this triangle fan palm here that is going to kind of give us a different coloration of a look, but also another fan. Now this is going to grow a heck of a lot slower than the double foxtail palm behind it. So once that happens, it's going to kind of give us a nice silvery, upright color and a big fan look when you're looking right from the pool area. And it's just going to kind of give us a bit of softness, but a whole different look. And when this is big and bright and silver, and those pygmies to the back are dark green, kind of wispy kind of leaf, that contrast, just so beautiful together. They're a perfect combination grouping. They like the same amount of water, they like the same kind of soil, they like the same type of fertilizer. I mean, they're definitely part of the same family where they can really be planted well together. This whole combination can. Just to give us a little bit of variation and a little bit of color, you see in between the gap of where the pygmy is and where the foxtail is before we start with the next pygmy, we have a tree that's going to kind of give us a big, broad, rounded kind of canopy like this bottle brush tree. This guy is going to double in size. He's just a nice clustered bottle brush tree. They also call it lollipop. I guess you can guess for what reason, but they do a fantastic job of doubling in size and becoming a nice, rounded, dense bit of coverage. So I'm not a big fan of having them in rows, but I do like them in the perfect spot. Now, when this is in full bloom. It has that nice, beautiful green foliage with bright red. You've got the dark pygmies to the back, the silver in the middle, and the dark green fronds above it. It's just gonna be stunning. Just those different layers, and that's kind of what I mean. You can bring them in. They're never gonna compete with each other. They're just gonna fill the gaps in between those plants and trees. And I think that's gonna come together really, really nicely. We kept the bottom pretty simple because when these layers come together, you really just don't need a whole lot. This is pretty much just carpet flower cover. We've got some gorgeous ruby reds for some dark contrasting colors. Then we've got some Bloom My Mind carpet flowers. To the back, we have the Rosetta, the curly copper leaves, the dwarf, and then little clusters of Sanchesia on the corner. Pink powder puff tree in the rear. And we've got two of those, one flanking each side. And you kind of notice that anytime we have something super, super tall, we kind of do a thicker, chunky backing to the back of it to kind of give it like a little bit of a wall to that section. One thing that I've learned a lot while doing my virtual consults where I'm speaking to people from all over the state of Florida, creating that wall to kind of get that thickness and that denseness started before you do all the small plantings, that's a step that gets skipped more often than not. And I'm telling you, it makes such a difference if you can start with your backdrop things and then really work into your smaller things as you move forward. Get them growing, get them filling out that area, and then before you know it, you'll have more encouragement than you know what to do with to get to those next layers and next layers before you feel like, oh, I got this, I'm a pro. This is another really good example that we chose to do here. Now, I know it doesn't look like it yet, but I'm telling you, in no time, these Brazilian red cloaks, and you guys know how I feel about my Brazilian red cloaks. I'm a super big fan because there's so many roots in this area. I couldn't put any more trees or any big accents. I chose something that's gonna connect and grow together. And I know a lot of you guys have those same kind of spaces. So if you have an area where, gosh, I just gotta be able to patch a few things in there that's going to fully connect. I don't have to worry about it being straight, or I don't have to worry about it being all in the right places. Use something like these or the fire spike plants, things that are gonna grab a hold and connect, even if they're 4 foot apart from one another. So these Brazilian red cloaks that are here are gonna grow up this tree line up to 8 to 10 foot tall. And what's behind you will pretty much disappear. And you're gonna get the beautiful green foliage on these, plus all those gorgeous, gorgeous reddish pink blooms that come with that. And they just bloom all summer long into the winter months. And honestly, I think mine bloomed last year all year long. And I've got a great collection of 10 foot of them on the corner of my house. All right, you guys, so for our next tip is adding different elements into the garden. Not have a garden that has too much of the same thing over and over again, kind of like too much of a rinse and repeat. Add a different element into it. Earlier, we talked about adding stone and edging into the garden. That definitely makes a different and unique look. The next thing that you can do, add some boulders. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a lot of boulders in this garden. Now, we were fortunate enough that these boulders actually came from the construction of their pool. We hit key areas with these beauties and got to incorporate them all the way through the garden. Hit some really interesting spots, even made like a little, with the small boulders, kind of created like a little island with them inset. I just absolutely love the way they look in this garden. And we do this often with Tennessee boulders. You know, we mix them in with our water features, and we often bring boulders into a landscape, and it doesn't have to be anything big, you guys. Boulders that are just a little bit bigger than basketball size. Inset them in because that different change in element, mixing them in with the plants and giving you kind of a reason just for your eye to rest on something like a statue or a water feature or boulders. All of those things add personality, add texture to the garden. So do not be afraid. If you've got some laying around somewhere, stick them into your landscape design, work around them, kind of frame the boulders if you can. Now, I will tell you, I like to make boulders look bigger than what they are. This Mamma Jamma happened to be a big one. Some of these guys were kind of small. So when we do set them, we'll dig out a little bit in the front of the boulder, tip the back side up, add soil behind there, or if you've got a paver brick or whatever that, you know, can really hold that angle up a little bit, it really kind of gives it more of a set-in look, like it was part of the earth originally, and then it also looks a little bit bigger. So it kind of gives you a little bit more of that grandeur when you incorporate that that little bit of soil around the boulder, and then landscape around it. And then before you know it, you just see those bright colorations through the garden where the plants have grown in all the way around it, and all you do is trim around the edge of where that boulder is, so you see that bright coloration inspiration as you look throughout the whole garden. I cannot wait to see that through this garden and how those little pops make a bunch of interest. So boulders are a great key to add to any landscaping. So before we go, you guys, I wanted to share with you just a couple key areas of this garden that I absolutely love. I just wanted to highlight and touch on a few things. One thing is right at the beginning, right at the start of a walkway. Now, if you guys have been around my videos, you know that I love entrance features when you come up to the walkway, whatever that might be. It could be a fountain, it could be a grouping of trees, it could be just, you know, just something that identifies that as an entrance feature to a space, like you're entering the garden. And that's exactly what we have here. So we've got the Buda edging that kind of wraps from the front walkway here, leading you around into the center of the garden here. And then it opens up as you get underneath the canopy of these trees. And now right here, we've entered the shade, which is like the best part of the garden because it's shady. And I wanted something to flank each side that could grow underneath a canopy of trees. So an understory tree, if you guys have a similar situation, a perfect understory tree would be something like the bottle palms. And if you like bottle palms, then what's not to like about triple bottle palms? These are 3-trunked bottle palms. They match pretty closely as much as Mother Nature allows, and they really give a nice vertical bit of impact. They are super cute now, but as they mature, as they establish, those bases are gonna widen like this and really give these two areas that tropical wide look to the trunks with their big bottle bases, and then really give an umph to this entryway, showing that this is an entryway. And because they only get 14 foot tall, they're not going to compete with the upper canopy trees. You might have to do a little bit of trimming and some lower fronds on this magnolia, but it's pretty minor. I mean, they're really going to be a fantastic understory tree for this space for years and years and years and years and years. So this is going to be a great spot. So if you have one of those areas, put a little more thought into that entrance. If your walkway starts wide and then it starts to narrow and then widen out to the destination of wherever that spot is, put something to anchor that there. It could be something as simple as 2 agaves and some color underneath of them, maybe a couple boulders. It could be a bird bath on one corner, you know, something that's going to like identify that as you have entered the space kind of thing, you know? So that's what I love about these triple bottle palms. Now, right at the bottom, we have 3 boulders on either side, kind of giving that a little bit more oomph. And then we have some sweet potato. Well, I kind of want them to climb all the way around the boulders. I love that these boulders have such a nice light coloration, and then these have the opposite. So that really is going to just kind of highlight those boulders as David trims around these boulders. These plants are going to really engulf this whole base and really kind of give you that dark carpet. I don't know, that is just so Alice in Wonderland. I just think it's going to be so gorgeous with this leaf pattern and these big giant boulders popping out of the middle of them. And then of course, when I have dark, I'm going to highlight them with things like this, the golden dews. Look how great they look as a bright coloration here. And then you've got the magnificent crotons underneath. And then the boulders mixed with these sweet potatoes crawling around. So to add to Alice in Wonderland, having these big, beautiful Farfugium leaves in the back, because here is one spot we do have shade in this garden. All that sun over there, all this shade over here, and they're just going to really unfold and wrap around the rear side of this tree. So it's going to give us a big filler in the back, this big kind of thriller in the middle, and then the spillers all on the sides here. And that's kind of just your perfect outline for a garden if you're looking for just kind of some cool features to replicate. To me, they do the job for you every single time. These little European guys, windmill kind of look, but they stay short, they stay chunky, and they also add a little bit of punch. And I love their contrast of leaf from them. It's just a completely different leaf, and they play so well together because of that contrast. Landscaping, that's what I love about it. It's just kind of like art and painting. You're just working with live materials. So finding the things that really work well together, and then you're gonna just have a gorgeous canvas. So that's kind of what this channel is all about. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and some of these helpful tips will help you in creating that perfect space of your own. If you need more help than the inspiration or the tips and tricks that we put on these videos, then you can reach out to us. I am a landscape designer. I just don't play one on YouTube. We have a landscape design and installation service where we install all this material along with the design that I create. We also have a design-only service for those of you guys who are outside our area, and then we also have a virtual consultation option where we discuss pictures and different areas of your space if that's something that you're looking for. Maybe you just need a little help with this or that. So I'll put all that contact information down below, and you guys can reach out to us and see if we're going to be a good fit for what you're looking for your project. When you reach out to us, be sure to leave your name, your information, your phone number. That way we have everything that we need in order to answer your questions. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Check out our most recent garden tour. If you like today's, then you'll love that one. And I will see you in the very next garden tour next weekend. Take care, you guys.